red diamond, the heart and soul of men. Red diamond, protect us till the end. Oh, hello. Welcome, neighbor. For you. What brings you by today? Perhaps you've heard Elder Scrolls Online released a new teaser. I heard it. I'm excited for it. I've been doing a little research to figure out exactly what they mean, what it all means, and where we're going, and how it's all going to end up. So a lot of people have already started making their assumptions and making their predictions. We're going to go through a couple of those. We're going to see what's right, what's wrong. We're going to take a look at the trailer. We're going to analyze it. We're going to see who, what, when, and where. And I'm going to make my predictions on what I think it's about. I'm going to show you what is factual. Show you what is out there for us to know. And I will tell you where we're going, what we're doing. And I might even throw a little bonus in there as to how this might help with PvP. Now, there are some spoilers that are going to come with this, so please, if I will try to do my best to let you know when a spoiler comes out. But until such time, let's go ahead and get started with the video. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm pretty excited about it. So I wanted to go through a little bit and kind of go over some of the things that we saw in there. And first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to show you the city we're going to go to. Now, this city right here, it does have some, what I would appear to be kind of some Iliac or Aelid and or Altimer type ships in the background. It has some architecture that we would normally see. A lot of people are thinking this is Iandonia, which is the home of the Marimor. Because of the architecture, kind of imperialistic with the red roofs. They kind of also think that it has to do with the city of Abenian. However, I don't believe that that's the case. Just because how big Iandia is. If we look at the map of Nirn, we will see that it is a huge continent down south, below the equator. Again, it's twice the size of Alinor, almost as big as Tamriel itself. I don't think that they would be willing to bring this in, just because it would be it'd be huge. I know Morrowind is huge and Cyrodiil is huge. Imagine what this would be. But let's see if there's a reason why we would go to Pandonia. There we go. Is there anything that we might, any quests that we might have done or might see while we do this? So if you've not done Carnothie's Roost, here's a spoiler for you. At the end of Carnothie's Roost in Mistral, there's a quest where you have to clear out the Cat's Eyes Quay. This is after the Sylvaner has been killed, and you go stop the Storm of the Tempest. And once you get done, you talk to the Green Lady, and she says, I ran out of Marmor to kill. If you find any more, let me know. And then you ask her, what will you do now? She says, I suppose I'll mourn the Sylvanar. I must find oils for his bodies and tools for the rites. I can almost feel his hands on mine, and hear him whisper, all things find their way. But they won't. He's gone forever, and soon I'm to follow. But what do you mean? The Sylvanar sustains the Green Lady, thus it has always been with every pair. I am not long for this world. I believe I'll find the Maramor's home island before my beloved pulls me back to the green, and I'll drown them in a tide of Mara's tears. So, the Green Lady, Fëanor, and Carnothie's Roost and Mistral is going to swim from Carnothie's Roost all the way to Pandonia, which is actually not that far if you think about it in that sense. It's just opposite the equator. You can kind of see at the bottom end of the Tamrelic continent. You can see a couple little islands. That's primarily where Carnothie's Roost is, so she just have to swim all the way down there. However, I don't think that's a possibility because, again, the Nirn is so large. And Pandonia is so large as well. So, let's look and see if there's anything that we might see with what is out there. There's actually a code that was released during the it was data mined, and the code for 2022, the zone was Sis High. Now a lot of people are thinking that's two islands, maybe Sicily and Delezi, or maybe the HI stands for High Isle, or could the HI just stand for Highrock? Highrock, as you know, is part of the landscape of Tamriel from the Glenumbra, the Hrothgar, Orsinium, basically all of the Daggerfall Covenant. So let's see what they say in about Highrock. So we're going to go to UESP, and we're going to look at the pocket guide for the First to the Empire, first edition of Highrock. It says Highrock encompasses Greater Brittany, the Delezi Isles, the Beaujolais River tribes, and by tradition, the Western Reach. Its various peoples are called Bretons for the sake of convenience only, as the endless multitude of city-states, principalities, baronies, duchies, and kingdoms that make up Highrock has, until recently, resisted all attempts at a centralization into a single culture or government. The Nords of the First Empire never conquered the whole of Highrock. The Cyrodiils ruled it, but failed to stamp out its virulent sectarianism, which sprang up again with renewed fury during the Interregnum. It is only now, under the guidance of the Third Empire, that Highrock is finally tasting the fruits of peace and unity, although a few Bretons still chafe under Tiber Septim's firm hand. So this, again, is part of the Third Era. The Elder Scrolls Online takes place in the Second Era, around 582, which is, I would say, about 200 years before Tiber Septim, when the plane melt happened. So Anyways, the Highrock region covers all of the Daggerfall Covenant for the most part. So that leads us to believe that possibly the HI is the Highrock area. But who is in the area? So we have Alakir Desert as well as the Bretons. We also have some of the other tribes in there as well, with the Nords up near the Reach and all this other stuff. You have the Orcs there. So which race is this going to be based on? Now, we did see from the creative director and from the studio director, Todd or whatever his name is, or Matt Fior. They came out and said it would be a class that we have not, or a race that we have not heard too much about. Now, Orsinium came out, so that rules out the Orc, Red Guards, and the Bretons are the only ones that really have anything left in the Daggerfall Covenant. As you can see with the trailer, we saw the 3 ships, so we'll get into that a little bit later. So let's dig a little bit more into who are here and what we might see. Again, the area of Highrock was primarily the Bretons until the Yakutin and the Red Guard came over from Yakuta. So the Bretons were primarily natives that were held under they were basically the natives that were slaves to the Aldemiri, the Altimer. And as part of that process, they started commingling, and they ended up becoming Bretons, which is the Manmeri, which is half human and half elf. They were first found by the Nordic expansion as they went out and started doing a census of the regions. And so the Nords from Windhelm went out and kind of looked at things and said, hey, there's some people over here. They're something we haven't encountered before. Not many of them, but they look to be half elf and half man. So they called them the Manmeri, and the name Breton stuck. We've seen a lot of action with the region. There is the Battle of Glenmore Moors, and we see that the island of Bethany is there, and a couple other little places as well. So we're going to look at some of those things right now. Sorry, this is a lot of lore, so I'm just trying to fill you in on what I went through to try and figure out exactly what's there. So we're going to look at the Iliac Bay. The Iliac Bay is primarily where the High Reach or the Highrock is. So we've got the Daggerfall Covenant right here, and the Isle of Alfaria and Bethany right there. Now, Bethany is what is commonly today in Elder Scrolls Online referred to as Benkith. The Bretons gave the island to the Orcs, and they renamed it from Bethany to Benkith. I believe that was sometime in the late First Era. So we're going to look at some of the notable places in the Highrock area. Obviously, we have Daggerfall. It sits across from Sentinel in the Iliac Bay. This was one of the largest kingdoms in the Highrock before the ascension of the Empire, and it retains the rights to maintain its royal court according to Cyrodiilic tradition. The city's fortunes have waxed and waned over the years. During the Elysian period, it was considerable importance, but it suffered greatly in the Thracian plague and is only now beginning to recover. The rise of Wayrest has lessened Daggerfall's importance as a trading port, although it should benefit from the opening of trade with the interior of the province. Now, Wayrest, which is in Stormhaven, has always seen itself as a rival of Daggerfall, but continues to suffer from an inferiority complex that is evident in the ostentatious display of its ruling house. Daggerfall has already a well-established kingdom within Wayrest, was merely a collection of rude huts at the mouth of the Boujulis River, but Wayrest prospered mightily after the fall of Orsinium. The Island of Alfaria. This island is in the Iliac Bay and has been used for centuries as a neutral meeting place for diplomats, negotiations, and treaty signings by the kingdoms of Highrock. It is also famous for the enigmatic structure known as the Diareni Tower, a circular tower soaring hundreds of feet into the sky. The traditional ruler of the island is known as the Castellan of Balfaria, perhaps reflecting his original role as commander of Diareni, or Balfaria Tower, which was used as a fortress, prison, and palace by the infamous Diareni Hemogeny. Even more curiously, the hereditary Castellans are High Elves, the only known elven ruling family remaining in human lands. They continue to reside in the tower, although its true provenance and purpose remains a mystery. A recent archaeological study using the latest techniques of divination and sorcery has pushed the tower's construction date back to around the ME 250. Now, ME is for the Merithic era, where it was the era of all elves, making it by far the oldest known structure in Tamriel, although it's been modified and added to over the years. So, and then you got the Western Reach. That's the Skyrim and the Nords and all that stuff over there. They all came down from Adamoran. Now, the reason I'm going into this is because it's going to key into what I think is going to happen, or what I think should happen. Now, the Adamoran tribes, or the Nords, they are north of the region of Daggerfall. So they came down once the frost hit up there, and then came down to this continent. So let's take a look at how the Bretons came to be. So the Diareni were an aristocratic clan of Ultimer. They are merchants, alchemists, and sorcerers who became a powerful dynasty ruling over Highrock for hundreds of years. And they have a area of influence around the Isle of Alfaria. I'm going to tie all this in together a little bit later, so bear with me on it. The clan Diareni originated in a small farming village of Cyrodiil, which is sat on the banks of the river Camius, then called the river Diren, hence the family's name, on Somerset Isle. If you've done the Somerset quest, you will probably have seen this city. Using the knowledge for alchemy, Alceel Diareni poisoned a barbarian tribe called the Lokvar, and then that were continuously raiding them. With its eternal threat dealt with, and the way was paved for future prosperity of the Diareni farms, and generations later, they would leave Somerset and travel to the mainland Tamriel, which would further increase their power and influence. Diareni discovered the Isle of Alfaria and decreed that her descendants should carry her name. This was Diareni Sigenus, the Swan of Cyrodiil. In the Middle Merithic era, the Adamantine Tower was rediscovered and captured by the Diareni and a prominent and powerful Aldmeri clan. Now, the hegemony rose to power in the mainland throughout the political movement and devious machinations in the First Era 355. The joint army of the Cyrodiilic Emperor Am-Il and Skyrim attacked the clan Diareni in the western reach of Highrock. Again, there we go. The rise of the Elysian Order in Cyrodiil. Many aliens fleeing Cyrodiil migrated to Highrock to escape the Order, and the exodus may have strengthened the clan as these immigrants were absorbed into their ranks. Lalorian Dinar and his people arrived in the Bushuis in the first era of 375. Now that name may sound familiar if you've done the main storyline quest. The Isle of Alfaria was later acquired by Rhiannon Diareni in 461 of the first era and used as a base for the war against Skyrim, which later ended in 477. The clan managed to conquer Highrock, some parts of Skyrim, and Hammerfell until 477, going as far east as Markarth and Elenor. The kings of the Calobrian West joined with Kvatch and Skingrad to resist the Alessian Empire. Soon after Skyrim under King Oeg Molekir and Ryan Diareni of Highrock joined the resistance. Diareni outlawed the Alessian reform and put its major advocates to death, and they began to harass the Calovian West, pushing for the Heartland. Following the involvement in Cyrodiil, the Alessians began conquering territories of the Diareni. Craglord had fallen to the Imperials in 479 of the First Era. The Alessian Order was trying to conquer Highrock. In 482 of the First Era, Prince Aidan Diareni led the Diareni against the Alessians in the decisive Battle of Glenumbria Moors, with Raven and King Dinar of Nenalata. I'm butchering this. I'm sorry. I apologize. Helping to secure the final victory. Now, if you've done the Glenumbra storyline, you will hear about some of this. Daggerfall became a minor base of operations for the Diareni and their allies in 480 to 482. And the Enchantress Raven was one of the earliest occupants of the castle Daggerfall. Although they won at the Battle of the Moors, they could not regain the power they once had, and one by one, control fell to the emerging nobility of Greater Brittany, who seized power throughout most of Highrock within 2 decades of the defeat, and in the end, only the Isle of Alfaria was left in their hold. Around 500, almost all of Highrock was freed from the Diareni. The retreat to Alfaria. While most Diareni relocated to the Isle of Alfaria in Highrock, some members of the clan stayed on Somerset, retaining the clan's holdings around the Diren Valley. Sometime in the First Era, one of the remaining Diareni, by the name of L'Oreal, became highly skilled in the arts of necromancy, and to the horror of her family. Facing the possibility of execution, she refused to repent and claimed that she could not be killed and would rise again. To prevent her from doing this, the Diareni buried her alive in the sarcophagus deep within the Acropolis, and bound her spirit to it by kindling 2 sacred flames in braziers. A keeper was then appointed to make sure that the braziers remained lit and the title was passed down between generations, hence the keepers. However, the Diareni population on Somerset diminished with time, and they lost contact with their kin on Balfaria. By the mid-Second Era, the last keeper was long dead. That's if you've done the Orden questline, the keepers, in the dungeon up there. And the braziers had gone out. In time, L'Oreal managed to manifest as a ghost and haunt the Acropolis, hoping to contact and convince someone to release her from imprisonment. The vestige entered the crypts of the Diareni Acropolis in 582 of the Second Era. Again, there we go. That's us. Tried to convince them to release her by burning her remains. While the lingering spirits of the dead keepers wished to see the braziers relit, it's unknown what decision was made by the vestige, as that is your choice. During the Three Banners War, both the Daggerfall Covenant and the Aldmeri Dominion used the history of the Diareni against each other in the propaganda leaflets. The Daggerfall Covenant pointed out that they let Clan Diareni live in their borders as proof that they could live with elves in peace, whereas the Aldmeri Dominion used the history of Clan Diareni to generate sympathy for the Altmer, describing their Diareni cousins as cruelly suppressed. So that is the lore of the Diareni. Now, let's learn about how the Diareni and the Bretons came to be. The Highrock is one of the most important. It is the home of the Bretons. Again, we talked a little bit about the Adamantine Tower and the little island of the middle of the Iliac Bay. The reason why that's important now is because if you remember with this last expansion, with the Greymoor expansion, you were able to now choose which starting zone you wanted to go with. And before it was always you had to start in the Blackwood, or you had to start in Somerset, or you had to start in elsewhere, or you had to start base game, depending on what chapters you had. Now, you are allowed to choose once you complete the tutorial. You go through the tutorial and it tells you, hey, where would you like to start? And they drop you off right there. That is the Isle of Alfaria. And you can actually see it from a lot of the regions within the Iliac Bay. So if you're going through Stormhaven, I believe it is, you can see it. If you go through Daggerfall, you can see it. If you're up there by Camlorn, no, not Camlorn, the one on the where you got to defeat Fauchu. If you look out over the bay, you'll be able to see the tower. So again, this is where this lore started to come in, and I think that's why we're going with Breton on this. Absent of everything that we've seen in the trailer, because we're starting to bring a lot of this lore into the game with the Isle of Alfaria. We had the Somerset Isles. We had all the things that happened there. That's why I'm thinking that we're leaning more towards Breton. But I could be wrong. So, let's keep going through and maybe we'll see something else that will pop up to us. So, we're going to go through and we're going to talk about the history of the Bretons and how they came to be. The Aldmer came to the region when the Tower of the Adamantine Tower was standing. That was because the Adamantine Tower was created by the Aedra. There's evidence that early beastmen were one variety or another, may have been the original inhabitants of Highrock, but the Aldmer coming from Somerset Island were the first to settle and form permanent communities. The early Nedic people who arrived next were stumbling upon highly sophisticated culture and were quickly overwhelmed and absorbed. One of the earliest tales of Colossi describes a Nord raiding party attacking a group that they presumed to be Aldmer, but who were, on closer inspection, a mongrel race between elf and human, the remnants of the earlier lost Nedic tribe. They were somewhat awkwardly called Manmiri, but we know them today as Bretons. It took many centuries for the Bretons to become the dominant force in Highrock. For most of the First Era, the elves kept a hold on the land, and the Nords founding fortified towns along the coast to support their pillaging parties, such as Daggerfall, which, as a kingdom, would have a profound influence on Highrock in years to come. Of all the families of the Aldmer who colonized Highrock, none did it so successfully as Clan Diareni. Go. An economic and military power, they were formidable enough to pose a continued threat to the battle-hardened Nords and the Elysian Empire of Cyrodiil. They took advantage of the internal strife in Skyrim and claimed portions of Skyrim and present-day Hammerfell. But they overextended and were slowly beaten back, falling back to the Isle of Alfaria. The Adamantine Tower, now called the Diareni Tower. Again, ties all right back into what was put into place on the Greywood chapter. Now, Blackwood chapter. Sorry, I apologize. So we had a lot of things happen. The Red Guards arrived from Yucatan, from Yakuta, and they conquered Hammerfell in year 808 of the First Era. They displaced the Beast Folk in their attacks and supplanting the Breton settlements along the southern Iliac Bay. They warred over dominance in the bay until they faced a common enemy in the Orcish kingdom of Orsinium. Rise and fall of the rebirth of Orsinium is detailed in a later section. But the discovery of the monstrous kingdom of all creatures as they were regarded was a very unpleasant surprise for both the Redguards and the Bretons. An alliance between Daggerfall and the kingdom of Sentinel led to a long war known as the Siege of Orsinium. The humans eventually prevailed, Orsinium was destroyed, and the orcs dispersed far and wide across Tamriel. During the interregnum, following the fall of the Cyrodiil Empire, had multiple fractions, conquered by Tyrus Septim. That's all in the Third Era, which is way past us. but you never know what may happen with that. Okay. That is the history of the elves. So what I did want to talk a little bit about was what happened to Daggerfall. And why they were ravaged during the Thracian plague. Where did I see? Oh, that's the Diareni. Here we go. The Thracian plague. So the Thracian plague was when the sea slodes came over to and sent a plague to the mainland Tamriel. Now, mainland Tamriel was ravaged again by this plague, and in response, the nations at large started what was called the All Flags Navy, or the All Flags Fleet, or the Lost Fleet. This was Tamriel's instrument of vengeance against the Slode of Thrace, who were held responsible for releasing the Thracian Plague in the First Era 220, or 2200, which claimed more than half of the continent's population. The All Flags Navy was formed under Baron Admiral Bendu Olo, the Colovian king of Anvil, to deal justice upon them. The navy was composed of ships and sailors from the Red Guards, the Bretons, the Colovians, which were the Imperials, Elves, and Orgonians. It was the largest allied naval force in Tamrielic history, sometime around the First Era 2260. They sailed to Thrace, slaughtered all the Slode they could find, and used unknown magic to sink the kingdom into the sea. So, the Thrace Islands are no more. They're in the sea. The reason why this is important is because we saw in the trailer that the three ships, while they should be warring, because of the Three Banner War in Cyrodiil, we're joining forces together. So the All Flags Navy sailed through the Abyssinian Sea and into the Sea of Pearls, the water surrounding the Thracian Islands. They sacked the largest island and laid siege to the Coral Tower. When they sent the Thracian archipelago into the deep, into Davy Jones' locker, they created a whirlpool. And this whirlpool sucked in roughly half of the fleet. These ships are evident in Cold Harbor, the realm of Malak Bal. If you've done the Cold Harbor main quest line, you will see a lot of them up in the area where there is the Captain One Eye. So there is a huge, look at the map, there's a huge maelstrom of Ball right next to Alinor. That is what has happened when they sunk the Thracian islands. So, gotta be careful with that. But it may lead credence into why we had such a storm pop up in that trailer. It's an interesting thing to think about. If the ships are, again, trying to do an all flags navy, or banding together for a common purpose, and they run into the maelstrom, it would wreak havoc on them. And we'll get into that in just a minute when I get to that point in the lore, and then we'll take you through that journey as well. So, again, a lot of people saying that we are probably going to Iandia. I don't believe so. Because of the bay area that's on Iandia, they're thinking that that has a lot to do with what that city showed. I don't think that's the case. What I think that city is actually on a different continent. Within the map of Nirn, there's a couple little places over there that I'm going to check out. Oh, So, within the Sistrus, this again goes back to the original code of this expansion, Sis. There's a group of islands called the Sistruses. Now, the Sistruses are 3 different islands that are as yet unexplored. But if you look just to the northwest of this group of 3, you will see another island. And this island has a cove on it. That island is called Angkor. It is a small island marking the westernmost extent of the Abyssinian Sea, far to the southwest of Hammerfell's coast and to the northwest of the Sistruses. A very small, unnamed group of islands lies to the southwest. A bay on Pankor's east coast nearly splits the island into a northern and southern half. So I believe that Pankor is the city that we see here. And if you remember, during the Merolithic era, the Altmer were all over the place. And so they had probably had a really, really big influence on them. If you look at some of the ships, you look at the way it's set up, that looks very very elvish to me. So that's what I think the city shows with that. And I think that's where we're going to go. Oh. So I think what the expansion is going to be is the Sistrus and the Angkor. However, there is a possibility that could be the High Islands, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to go into the next part of the video, which a lot of people are having some issues with, and that is the armor. A lot of people are saying that some of this is or isn't Breton armor. If you look at the Breton style, if you look at the Breton style, there we go. That is very Breton-esque, but they're saying the shoulder pads aren't. All right. Yes, the shoulder pads that are right there are not exactly ones that have been in place yet. However, I think I know who this guy is, and I'm going to go into that in just a minute. But I want to get back to the ships that you see in the horizon. They are totally destroyed. All 3 of them are totally destroyed. You can see them start to hit rocks. You can see the red one fall over, the mast break, the sails are torn up. This leads me to believe that they got too close to the Maelmord. So, it also leads to why I think we're going to Sistrus. So, everyone's wanting to know who this person is. And I've got a theory on this. So, if you've done... Because a lot of people are looking at the belt buckle, and they're looking at the belt buckle and they're saying, hey, That belt buckle is not something we've seen yet. So it's got to be a new place. It's got to be a new place. This must be some new person that we've never seen before, never met, anything like that. Well, I think I've found out who that is. Because that looks an awful lot like the belt that's right there. And if we look at the armor right there, we should be able to see something very similar right there. This is from Daggerfall. It is a Breton. All of us have the ability to wear that exact thing. And let me show you how. Oh. That is the armor of the Lion Guard. That is exactly who that is. I believe it is a Lion Guard official. I believe that it happens to be Darien Gautier's father. He is General Gautier. He is the highest ranking Lion Guard there is. So it would make sense for him to be that character. Now, a lot of people are saying, but he used the sword and caused the storm and schwacked out all those ships. I don't think that's the case. Because if you look at the board, that's him looking at the forces at bay, right? And as you scroll through the board, as you scroll through the movie or the trailer, you'll see another island pop up there. And a lot of discussion has been made about what landmass this is. Some are saying it's Glenumbra and Hammerfell. Some people are saying it's Hughes Bane. I think it might be Anvil. Again, when we talk about the All Flags Navy, it's set from Anvil. So it makes sense that since the architecture of Anvil is very similar to the architecture of the Paincore city that we're going to be going to, I think that it makes very much sense for this to be coming from the Gold Coast. And you can see that island out there, right by that lead ship, as the sword's about to schwack them all to the side. And that is actually Stras Mackay, I believe. So I think they're sailing past it. Now, why do I think this is originally our landmass? Because in the context of a military engagement, you generally speaking don't have a map of where they came from, right? You don't have a map of where those people came from if they're right on your front door, right? So you can see the ships on the board are going away. So this to me means that this is a Tamrelic location, and that this individual is probably one that we've already seen. It is not a new person, a new warlord or anything in the new city or the new island, because again, it doesn't make sense from a military standpoint to have a board showing where the invaders came from. So to me, it looks like he's frustrated because his ships are turning around. And that's why when you get up here, you see him just kind of like, just kind of standing there, just like disgusted that his ships are being destroyed. That's what I think. Now, a lot of people are going to say, but his shoulder pads are different than the one he has right there. If you've done the Glenumbra storyline, you will know that General Gautier slew Falchu. And so Who's to say he didn't take those as a trophy and put them on his shoulder pads? They very much look like they could just be a padding on top, you know, so like a trophy. So that could very well be why they look different. But I believe that it's Gutier. So now we're going to go over to why I think that we are going to be going there. We've already seen in Shadowfen the pirates at Alton Cormont. Now the pirates there, they have had some of them already try and go find the lost fleet as well. And so they actually have the blasted Breton there as their center of their little trading hub. But I believe that because Captain One Eye already tried to go and find the old fleet, that it makes sense for us to follow that path. Again, the storyline is there already. So with that, I think I'm in pretty good shape to say that we're probably going to go to the Sistress and Pancor as as our main locations. But I want to go into a little bit something different now, because there was someone within the forums that said that the HI of the code stands for High Isle. So maybe Sicily and Delezi. So neither one of these have really been shown too much. I believe Sicily was in Battlespire, but Delezi has not happened yet, right? And if we remember what they said about all chapters going forward, all chapters going forward are now going to have a pet that goes with the storyline. Now, if we look, the current pet that's going to come up is the Soulfire Dragon, right? The Soulfire Illusion Dragon. That is the one that is going to be the next pet for this next expansion. Now, why does that matter? Because if we look at everything that's happened with the Blackwood chapter, we have had the Unstable Monolith. We've been able to morph that into the Deadwalker skin, the personality, the Deadland skin, the Griffith, and the house. Right? I don't know if there's two ways we can go with this, right? I see this as the golden dragon is often the symbol of Akatosh. So if Akatosh is the golden dragon, he is the god of time. So he is also the cause of dragon breaks. Dragon breaks are when time basically stops for an undetermined amount of time. Basically meaning that anything can happen during that time period, and then it'll pick back up once the dragon break is over with. That's why we can right now have dragons in the second era, because dragons have been imprisoned already. So within the second era, we should not have dragons. They should only be coming out until until the time of Skyrim, which happens sometime in the 4th era. Since we're in the 2nd era, it probably is not one that we should be seeing any of the dragons, but because of the dragon breaks, because of Akatosh, the dragon god of time, as he is known to the Bretons, there's opportunities for us to move some of the timelines. So the reason why I bring up the Dragonbreak is because, again, why I think that that this is General Gautier, right? If you've played the Somerset Isles quest line, you will know that there is a individual that becomes the Golden Knight in Prisoner of Meridia, right? You have to play the main storyline there, and then play the Somerset Isles, and you'll figure out exactly who that is. But there's a special relationship between them and the general. So I'm wondering if he's not the reason pushing this, is he's trying to find Meridia or Akatosh. Meridia is also a Daedric Prince of Light, or a demigod, if you will. So I don't know if the Golden Dragon is a play on both of them, with Akatosh and Meridia, or not. So it leads me to wonder whether or not, General Gautier is in fact the Breton we see on the parapets, and whether or not he's attempting to get Darien freed. That would leave us a lot of good play. So if that is the case, there is an opportunity for a Dragonbreak. With that, there has been a lot of conversation about the state of the game, right? They've talked about it multiple times, about PvP not functioning correctly and having to recode it and redo this. And a lot of these patches, a lot of these chapters have been like 3 years in the making. Right now, they're probably working on 2024's stuff already. Just to kind of get the idea, the concepts, the storyline, what direction they want to go. They're probably already working on 2025, and they're like in the probably the second half of finishing up like the pre-draft of 2024's expansion already. So what I think can happen with that is that because the Dragonbreak is here, and we are in 2nd era 582, right? We are just a few years away from having from having Talos appear. I guess would be the best way to say it. And this also is one of the reasons why I'm thinking that if they do a Dragonbreak, we go into High Isles. Now, I don't know if High Isle they're trying to mean as Pancor. And because it is slightly higher than the Sistresses, or not. Or if they are talking about the Delezi Isles and Sicily. I don't know whether or not they're trying to do that or not. I think it would be cool if we could do a Dragonbreak and bring in the Delezi Isles. Because some of the lore behind the Delezi Isles is it's a region of islands found within Highrock, considered one of the major lands along with Greater Brittany and the river tribes and the Western Reach. They habitate the clans of the province. It is unknown exactly where the isles are found, but they are located outside of the Iliac Bay. So that means that they are outside in the ocean And there was an interview with Todd Peterson on Highrock, where it's at, with the Imperial Library, I believe it was. But if they do bring in the Delezi Isles, it would be north of Glenumber probably. And he did talk about how he wanted the Glenumbra to that area to be like directly in between the Delezi Isles and the Isle of Alfaria. Now, the reason that's important is because some of the lore around Tiber Septim says he comes from the Delezi Isles. Tiber Septim is the one who creates the Septim Empire and brings peace to Cyrodiil. It would be awesome to have a Dragonbreak where the Emperor Pulchicane, who precedes Tiber Septim, brings peace to the Empire within Cyrodiil. And this is why, because a lot of times all you have are people just going around trying to get Emperor, just going keep, not doing any fights. It's what people like those scrubs, Sawman UK, and is there anyone else, and Nessia, so all those guys that they just whine. That's all they do. No, with all due, they're some of my favorite PvPers to watch, and they're really great. So you should go check out their channels. But that's one of the things they talk about is that no one wants to fight anymore. They just want to go to empty keeps and knock them down, right? And so the game itself is trying to do all these things on the side, and then when you get a bunch of people together, there's all this added stuff on it. But if the Emperor came back and solidified Cyrodiil and took over the throne, you would no longer have people going back trying to get Emperor, right? Because there's already an Emperor. At this point, you just have factions, like you just have little revolts. That's all you would have. Or you would have to go out and you couldn't actually take the keep, but you would go out and fight and just fight. And do some PvP stuff, hide behind trees and jump on rocks and all that other stuff. I think that would be a great way to change the dynamic of PvP, because you would no longer have these big monstrous keep battles. Now you're just going to have roving bands of marauders going at each other, right? I think in doing that, they could change the scripting of all of the, I'm pretty sure they're probably already working on it or have already got it figured out to a point. But if the Dragonbreak happened to allow this to jump forward in time a little bit, and they were to use that Dragonbreak to ensure that Cyrodiil got fixed, I think that'd be huge. So that's kind of why I'm like thinking, if they bring in the Delezi Isles, that would put a Dragonbreak for Tiber Septim. Now, I'm not exactly sure whether or not that's going to happen. I think it's an absolute certainty that we're going to Pancor and to the Sistress Isles. I guarantee that. I believe that it is Gautier who's leading that charge. I believe they're taking off from Anvil myself. But it would be nice to see a Dragonbreak where the Empire was solidified within the Imperial City. It would heal that up. It would also allow for some of the lore to come into place where, now that Mehrunes here, there'd be opportunities to, shut off the Oblivion within the Imperial City. Tiber Septim is a Dragonborn, so he would be able to light the dragon fires and close off the Imperial City. Would be able to rebuild that. All this other stuff that goes on. And one of the reasons why it's feasible, in my opinion, is because within the Soulburst timeline of the main story of Elder Scrolls Online, there's a character named Metamarco. Now, Metamarco is the King of Worms. He is a Lich King. He's been around because he's a Psijic. He was a Psijic order, and he studied with Vanus Galarian, who founded the Mages Guild. These guys are super, super old, right? No matter what you chose to do during the Soul Burst line, because there's an opportunity for you to meet him again after all that goes through, before you complete the quest. You have an opportunity to release him if you choose. But you also don't have to release him. You don't kill him. So, for all you know, he's just sitting there waiting to escape. But in doing that, allowing that storyline to continue, it falls right in line with the third era timeline, because Metamarco survives until the middle of the third era when he is killed. And he, at the end of Oblivion, I believe it is, or is it Daggerfall? Maybe Daggerfall, in which you can do that. But there's an opportunity for, when you find the Amulet of Kings, you may give it to Metamarco. And so you can, in doing so, you can give it to him, or you can give it to Uriel Septim. I believe it's Uriel Septim the 5th or 7th. Anyways, you find the Amulet of Kings, you can give it to either one of them. And again, this is another Dragonbreak. It's kind of like Schrodinger's cat, right? There's so many different opportunities depending on how you choose to play your role in Tamriel or in Nirn, that no matter what you do, it will create a Dragonbreak for you. And that is what is cool about this, and why I think if they really wanted to fix PvP, they could use a Dragonbreak. We have Metamarco here. They could bring forth Tiber Septim's predecessor and secure, at least Cyrodiil in the Imperial City, and allow for the PvP just to be PvP, no longer just taking empty keeps and just AP farming and all this stuff. Actually have people fight. So I think that would be a great way to allow for a Dragonbreak, since we're dealing with Alkosh, or Alkosh, that's the Khajiit name for him, Akatosh. Because we're dealing with Akatosh anyways, and we are getting the Golden Illusion Dragon Pet. I think it leads credence to where they could do that. And we are going to a new area, a new place, so why not? Maybe this is where Metamarco goes. Who knows? But if we definitely bring in the Delezi Isles, that allows for at least the emperors to come to join the timeline. Because Tiber Septim, who later becomes Talos, shortly after the third era begins, he himself is either a descendant of the Adamora or a Breton from the Delezi Isles. Again, he is a Breton, so it would fall right in line with the Breton story. And again, with them saying this is all about political intrigue and all this other stuff, the predecessor to him, who is fairly... He's relatively unknown when compared to Tiber Septim, but if that's the case, and we are to get them in place right now, I think it would free up and clear up the PvP community. I think they would greatly appreciate that. Because they are Bretons. It's coming right in with this line of thinking, and we do a Dragonbreak with Akatosh and get them in and clear up Cyrodiil and PvP, and then we'll go from there. So, that is my thought on that. anyways, that's pretty much all I had on that. I hope you guys enjoyed the lore and the some of the ideas that I put out there. Let me know what you think. Do you think I'm right? Am I the first one to mention this? Did I get it all wrong? Let me know in the comments what you think. And then also, what do you think about the idea of the Dragonbreak? And what do you think the Golden Illusion Dragon means? I wonder. I would like to know what you guys think on that. So, sorry, I'm just kind of rambling on this, but hey, that's what we're here for, right? Trying to figure this stuff out. As it's said right now, Rich Lambert has said no one has guessed right as to what it is. So, I'm going to put this video out and we'll see if I can do that. So let me know in the comments below. Give me a like and a share, all that stuff. And I will see you on the next go round.